Hey, what's up guys, aarava here, and welcome back to another episode of my F1 2020 My Team Career Mode, episode number 37 today for the Italian Grand Prix in Season 2. If you guys did miss the previous episode at the Belgium Grand Prix, then be sure to go check that one out. Before you see this one, right down to the wire, literally the last corner. Still kind of a little bit peeved off for how that ended in terms of, just running out the ERS at the end with Leclerc, but oh well, we live and learn and we'll move forward. But this one may be equally a very, tough day for us because we are going to take some engine penalties. We've got the Italian Grand Prix, probably the best place to take it, if you compare the circuits we've got next, Singapore, street circuit, hard to overtake at, Russia, not a great circuit in general, so I think this circuit will be the best one to take it. We've not got long until that's only 2 days in the activity timeline, so just doing some reaction training, I think that was, with Sainz, trying to maintain that 94 rated Sainz we've got, although last time out didn't really help, to be fair, because I think he got tangled up with Ricciardo, and in the end finished quite low down the order compared to where he was in the race, leading at one point. But as I said, we're going to take engine penalties because you can see the durability there, not too great. We're already on column number 3. This time last season we had already taken a column due to that whole iffy British Grand Prix we had where the game nearly broke on us and we had that awful qualifying. So we had already got past that stage of the season, so that's why it maybe seemed like last season we actually had better durability than we did now at this point in the season. That's because we'd already taken that extra column, and of course we've been investing a lot in the durability, but it's taking some time. Those major upgrades and even the minor is, we have to wait till now. And as I say that, speaking of the devil, it actually fails. That minor upgrade on the MGUK for the durability failed on it, so we're waiting two races for it, and it's still not come in. So we're gonna have to wait 3 whole races now for it to come in next episode, repurchase that. So ironically, the other upgrades, the 2 major error upgrades I rushed for the British Grand Prix, those don't fail, but the durability, which has no, qualms on the performance or anything like that, that's the one that fails and takes a while. So we have been in a bit of a plateau stage for the last few races in that kind of sense, but obviously it's been I think in the long term it'll be a good investment, obviously, as you guys voted for it as well, and stay true to, as I've said the entire time, you guys are my board of directors and you guys voted to go in that kind of direction. And to be fair, also it will help us out because towards the end of this season, if it does get a little bit touch and go in the championship, we're going to need Sainz and myself to avoid any more grid penalties. Sainz has already taken one earlier in the season. I've yet to do one, but as I said, this episode, that's when we'll do it. R&D wise, pure performance, Ferrari looked to bring some small upgrades, it seems, as we go into the race weekend and check the graph. You can see they're a bit closer to Red Bull. Red Bull kind of maintain where they were, but it's so close between ourselves, Merc and Red Bull. And to be fair, Ferrari, in the hands of Leclerc last episode, looked pretty quick, on that alternative strategy, so don't count them out. Obviously, it's their home GP, so they're going to want to turn up. But as I said, we're going to go ahead and switch over all those components. You can see their penalty warning for each one. So we're going to take a new one for every single one because we may as well, because all of them are quite worn. There are a few components, the control electronics, turbocharger, the internal combustion engine. Those 3 are wearing out a little bit higher than the others, but you may as well take all of them because if you're going to take 3 penalties, that pretty much puts you at the back anyway. So you may as well take all of them, plus the gearbox as well. So we're going to break the gearbox. We don't need to technically, but we may as well get a fresh gearbox for this race and the next few in terms of having that less wear that we had for the last 2 races. Because again, if you're going to take 60 places of grid penalties, you may as well take that extra 5th one for the gearbox. So we move on then into qualifying, which is a bit of an odd one because it doesn't really matter where we qualify because we're going to be at the back, but it's going to be useful to kind of just test out how the car is, hopefully see where we're at in terms of the setup and what I've got to work with maybe in the race. So we go in Q1 on the soft tire just to kind of see what the lap time can be. A bit of understeer in turn 1, I must say. I'm running the exact same setup as last season, so 3 wings, and last season I remember it didn't feel that bad. Like, it felt quite okay. I did have to kind of, be a little bit cautious into the brake zones because the car was on such low aero 3.3 that was a little bit skittish, but compared to this season, honestly, I felt like almost this car was understeering more than last season's car, and that's all due to, obviously, yes, it's improved aero-wise, but it's improved way more in the engine department, and also how lightweight it is, and how therefore how much quicker it is out of corners and into the next corner. And so I feel like that combo means that even though we've arrived to this season with more downforce, the car is actually way more powerful. So I actually feel like it's more skittish with the 3-3 wings. So that was a bit of an oddity, and actually we might struggle a little bit in the race with that feeling. And so into Q2, we make it through into Q2, and so Q2 I knew I wasn't going to bother, because just like they've done in real life in the past, you know, with especially Red Bull, when they've taken penalties, they've, you know, turned up in Q1, they've done their lap, and then in Q2 that's when they call it quits, just to kind of get a feeler. And like I said, that's what I wanted to do. So we've actually filled up the car on 29 laps or 30 laps of fuel, which is more in the race, just to get a feel of what the car's going to be like then on soft tyres when we get to race day tomorrow and Sunday, and just to kind of, you know, shock my system a little bit into seeing what I've got to deal with. And I must say, it was just basically a world of understeer. So even though this car is going to be very slippery in a straight line, which we want it to be, to make those overtakes, to, you know, make up from P22 on the grids, I feel like at the very start of the race it is going to be a little bit nervy in the corners, and we're going to have to really, you know, it's going to feel like a bit of a boat. I mean, it's going to be some fine-tuning in the apexes to try and get the car turned. Hopefully, as we obviously lose the fuel through the race, it's going to get better and better. But that's the end of our Q2. Then Sainz did top the session. I was worried because in Q1 he only just made it through into Q2, but there he is at the top. But it doesn't obviously mean that's going to be the way it pans out in Q3, because obviously I'm not going to be in Q3 anymore, so the simulations will be doing the timing. So you never know what the simulation's going to say. You know, probably if we look back at previous games, it's probably going to be a 1-2 for Mercedes cars, because when you simulate the session, when you're not in Q3, unfortunately the game sometimes leans back on what the base level car performances are. But of course, we've got a My Team car now. We're not like an actual F1 team car, so I don't know how it's going to shape up here. And obviously, it's just Q3, so you just never know. Teams might just turn up the wick a little bit, but we won't know until we get to the grid. So speaking of that, let's just go to Sunday. We know we're going to be in last place, and we've got it all to do, but this is the tactical place, the best place to do it, I feel, in my opinion. So let's go to Sunday and see how the grid shapes up.
Welcome back to one of only 2 countries that has held a race every year since the very first Formula One World Championship in 1950. It is, of course, Italy, one of the great racing nations, and it's time to get underway for the Italian Grand Prix. With top speeds reaching 215 miles per hour, only a few places can challenge Monza's crown as the fastest circuit in F1. Hard braking zones going into the 3 chicanes make up the majority of the 11 corners on this 3.6-mile circuit. And just in case the slipstream wasn't enough, 2 DRS zones will help encourage some closer action. And as always, a man with plenty of racing experience joins me in the commentary box. Today it's Anthony Davidson. Tell me, Ant, you're no stranger to surviving the melee of turn 1. So how do you keep out of trouble when there's so much going on around you?
Well, the throttle goes both ways, Crofty. You've got to have the discipline not to try and win the race on the first lap. So always be prepared to lift early and give those around you more space. Trying to be the last of the late breakers with half a dozen cars around you may pay off from time to time, but it's also a great way to lose your front wing.
Before we begin, let's take a quick look at the grid lineup for today's race. Valtteri Bottas lines up on pole position, and Lewis Hamilton completes the front row. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Leclerc, Vettel, Carlos Sainz, and Perez, Ocon, Norris, Stroll, and Pierre Gasly, Russell, Ricciardo. They'll be starting further back after an earlier grid penalty. Antonio Giovinazzi and Albon, Matsushita, Verstappen, Kevin Magnussen, and Roman Grosjean. Aitken, Latifi, Kvyat, and the owner-driver rounds off the grid. It's almost time for the lights to go out, so let's head down to the track and get this Grand Prix underway.
So like I suspected, unfortunately, it looks like the simulation times have paid out in Q3 for the top teams. Mercedes 1-2, then it's all second row of Ferrari. That may be legit, to be fair, because Ferrari did bring upgrades, and also Sainz did get to P5, so it might be the simulation kind of unfortunately going back on the base cars, or that legit may be where our car is. I think it was quite close in terms of the timing, so I don't know. But let's forget about Sainz and those top guys, because it's going to be a while in this race till we even get to them. We need to first get past a load of traffic. Hopefully, well, the opening lap needs to be a good one, aggressive one, trying to make the places up, and then we just go from there. And hopefully, obviously, we've chosen this race for a reason. Use the slipstream, the ERS power, which has been so amazing for us, you know, this season, with having not to worry about basically having not enough ERS to deploy around the lap. We've actually had too much, basically, at the point that I'm running out of ERS at the end of the laps, a la kind of the end of the last race. So we need to make the most of it and limit the damage here. Hopefully, we can try and meet up with our teammate at some point, but I'm not going to count on anything. It's a very gloomy race, so hopefully the rain stays away, because that would really be a massive span in the works and something that I would not enjoy here at Monza with the low wings we've got. But let's get into this. We're a long way away from the top three in that podium up ahead of us, but let's see what we can do from the back of the grid as we go to 5 red lights to the Italian Grand Prix, and we are underway, and it's a bit of a tentative start, really, but then boosting with the ERS, getting past Kvyat in the Renault, then trying to get to the inside of the two Williams cars. Going to get boxed in a little as he's trying to find any kind of room, but look at Grosjean and Latifi go. They've gained like 4 or 5 positions there. The Haas of Grosjean just jumped like 6-7 cars into turn 1. We should have tried that as we got pinched in, and we actually found ourselves side by side with Verstappen through turns 2. So Verstappen also poor in qualifying, so he's also trying to gain the places this afternoon as we're now side by side with the Dutchman into the next corner. Oh my god, Magnussen, what are you doing, mate? Magnussen completely stationary into the left-hander, took avoiding action. Somehow didn't take out Verstappen. We made a collision with him, but I'm actually very surprised we didn't take out Max, because he was on my left. He was still very much on my left-hand side, and I still had to jump to the left to dodge the Haas car, so I guess he kind of reacted, thankfully, to me. But a very chaotic opening lap then. We're only up into P19, but this is on board from Verstappen. Look at this. Ho, ho, ho. Very good reactions from the Dutchman there to avoid my car, which I could either crash into Magnussen or swipe across Verstappen and try and avoid it. So thankfully Max reacted to that, and now we try and catch up to him as he attacks the car's head. We've got a massive gaggle of cars up here to try and overtake if we can. So now at this point on the lap, licking my lips a little, because you've got like 5 cars all within 1 second. We could try and make a massive overtake here and really jump ourselves up the order as Hamilton sets the fast lap of the Grand Prix, leading the way, I'm sure, as we're now 3 wide with Verstappen and Albon in the racing point going to overtake the Williams car. So that's 3 moves in 1. We've now got 2 cars ahead of us of Ricciardo, Matsushita, the Renault down the inside. Albon outbrakes me and does a great job to get around my outside to try and attack me and re-overtake that place that I got from him. So we're still jostling for position on the exit, having to use some overtake mode to actually keep ahead of the Thai Brit driver in the racing point car. So P16 gained, so we still gained 3 positions in 1 go. So I'll still call that a grand success of an overtake, really, but we're unable to attack the 2 cars ahead. Ricciardo actually got overtaken by the Renault, so the Renault is looking very punchy this afternoon. For some reason, both Red Bulls are actually quite slow. Both of them had a very poor qualifying, I guess, and also grid penalties to add into that. So all 3 of us, top cars, looking to try and gain back, but at the moment, sitting just nice and easy here, because you can see my engine's overheating a little bit, so we're going to have to lean mixture just to try and save the engine a little bit, and then we'll go to standard, use overtake mode on the exit, looking to gain a nice long-range tow. The only issue here is Ricciardo's got the same thing going off the Renault and the Haas of Grosjean. They're up ahead as the Renault sails past the Haas. Ricciardo makes a dive down the inside. They're going to slow each other up. We're going to go tight on the left, then tight to the right, try and switch back, and oh no! Oh, for goodness sake, we've hit Grosjean there on the switchback. He complete. This is, and now Verstappen's down our inside there. That's really frustrating now. We've got a big amount of damage here on the front left. That's not going to be drivable. That is not going to... I can't drive with that for many laps in. We're now side by side with Verstappen as we made a switch back on him, ironically, to try and go around the outside, but I have to brake early because, look at that understeer now. I tried to switch it because you saw what was happening there. Hopefully you did. Ricciardo and Grosjean side by side, they were going to hold each other up. So I tightened up my left-hander and then tightened it on the right, but I should have gone even tighter on that right-hander. I shouldn't have accelerated as early as I did because that kind of swayed me a little bit left, and Grosjean was still turning right to kind of give Ricciardo room, and also I think they made contact, so that kind of pushed him right. and that pushed him right into the path of my front wing here, as now, surprisingly, we have a little look on the inside of Grosjean. He now dives down the inside of Verstappen, so it's all kicking off. These guys are very aggressive. They're yo-yoing about in the brake zones. I was quite surprised Ricciardo, anyway, tried to make a move on Grosjean on that previous lap, because, you know, Machicita got him, and I thought that was the move, but then Ricciardo tried to get 2-in-1 there as well. So now we look to also make a 2-in-1 maybe, as we look to overtake Grosjean and Verstappen, even with front wing damage. Massive lock up on the front left as we try and slow down the car. So that kind of just shows what a good race car we in theory have, because in a straight line this car is still rapid as hell to overtake that Haas and the Red Bull, but then in the corners now with this damage, I can't continue like this. It's going to be like one more lap, I'm going to have to come in, but the reason I've stayed out is because there's no way I'm doing a two-stop. A two-stop will not work for me, so I need to try and stretch it for at least a little bit more to go onto a set of hard tyres to make the one-stop work. But this was on board from Grosjean. He doesn't feel anything because he's racing Ricciardo. It's that right-hander where he's obviously made some contact with Ricciardo. Let's look at my onboard from slow-mo. So I tighten up here on the left. I should have gone even tighter on the right and shouldn't have accelerated as early, because that acceleration, if I just accelerated maybe 2 seconds later, I probably would have just tucked underneath Grosjean and gone round on the right-hand side of him. But because I accelerated a little bit too early, I was too eager, I basically started to understeer, my car understeered due to the acceleration into that right rear tyre, because he was still moving right due to giving Ricciardo some space. So that's how it was in my mind. In the end, I can't fault Grosjean that much, to be fair. It's just a racing incident. It's just really unfortunate that, obviously, I just didn't judge it right. Usually, you know, that's an amazing place to do a switchback. I said it in the commentary when it was happening. You know, I was like, here you go. You can see what's going to happen here. Can we just dive to the inside, get both of them in one foul swoop? In the end, not to be. Verstappen overtakes us on that previous lap, as he would, because we've got no downforce in the corner. So we've stretched this to lap number 5. Now, this is crucial. Like I said, we're going to go onto a set of hard tyres and go to the end, because a two-stop was not, you know, that wasn't happening. A two-stop was not going to happen. Maybe if I was at the front, but from the back, the one-stop always had to happen here. So we're going to change the front wing onto a set of hard tyres, which I hate. So you guys know how much I hate hard tyres, especially at a track like this where you've got low downforce. So the car is not pushing the tyres into the ground as hard as it would do at other circuits. So these hard tyres are going to feel horrendous. And lo and behold, lap 10, I can confirm, it did feel horrendous. That out lap was no faster than any of my previous laps in Sector 2 at least as well. And then all these subsequent laps have not really been that quick. I've had maybe a few greens here and there, but this lap 10's not been particularly great, with red first sector and second. So not very happy at the moment in the car. I'm still, well, now I'm in second last place. I wasn't last still on lap 11, man. Latifi's pit. So now we've finally got some pit stops for these guys for their first and only pit stop of the Grand Prix, remember, because I think everyone's going to be trying a one-stop, I would say. But you can see, even versus the Renault, I'm just sliding around, and I still can't get the power down in 5th gear with ERS deploying. Obviously, though, I would say in the end of the day, I should be able to overtake this Renault eventually, but it takes us to lap 12 then, a whole lap of then trying to wind ourselves up to get this pass done. But now the slingshot, purple first sector, this is more like it. Round the outside, it was a bit nerve-wracking, to be fair, because I wasn't sure where Kvyat was going to move there in the brake zone. Got the job done up into P17, so slowly speeding up a bit. Ahead of me, Ricciardo still yet to pit in this Grand Prix, I think. Or no, he's pit onto medium, so that's the only issue here for us today as well, is that a load of these guys, they'll be pitting for a one-stop, yeah, but they'll be pitting onto medium, so their tyres will feel so much better than mine ever did in those opening 5 laps of my stint on these hards. And as I said, it would take maybe a few laps to rubber in, because you're just not producing as much downforce pushing the tyres in. And so lap 13, still not feeling great. 3 laps later, lap 16, now we're slowly feeling a little bit better and catching up to Machicita in the Renault. So this is where we kind of were in the race, kind of. You can see up ahead of me, the Red Bulls are kind of in a train with the McLaren of Norris there. But now, green second sector. So the car is now starting to feel a little bit better. We've got 11 laps to go, so still a long way. And the tyre wear will kick in at the end of this race. But as the tyre wear kicks in, ironically, the tyres actually feel better to me. At least that's in my mind. I don't know if that's just me wired very weirdly with the hard tyres. I honestly feel better now on these hards, having done, what, 12 laps, than I did on the opening laps. And you can see I'm not really kidding about that, because we overtake Bashasita there on that lap, and then on lap 19, closing up to Norris now. Purple first sector, really using the engine power to good use in that sector with a lot of ERS deployment on the main straight and also off the second turn. And now down the inside into Parabolica. Easy does it on the exit, but just slipped down the inside of our fellow Brit, and we're up into P14. So we're still 4 places off points, and we're now in the last third of this Grand Prix. So I was imagining this Grand Prix to be a glorious last to, 5th place, or the podium even, maybe, with a very quick car in a straight line. It's turned out to be a very, tough race. Probably I think this has honestly been the toughest race I've had this entire season, because I had to drive 5 laps or 4 or 3 laps with a broken front wing, and only now are we catching up to 4 cars ahead of me for then the top 10, but 2 of them are Red Bull cars. So I'm going to go ahead and overtake 2 top cars technically to just get into the points for P10. So we're now catching back up to our best pal now, Verstappen. We've had many fights in this Grand Prix, but now can we try and overtake him round the outside? Easy does it, very close to the grass, but we actually just skate it through there. Nice bit of drifting, but that drifting unfortunately allows Verstappen to get a good exit and switchbacks me to the inside here. So now we're side by side as he pushes me a little bit wide. We're going to try and squeeze him to the right hand side, try and force his hand a little bit there on the exit, on the curb. Massive battle of oversteer. We make contact with Verstappen, warning for collision I'm sure will be coming. There you go. So for most of this race we've been in the wars with Verstappen, so maybe not exactly making friends with him today in this race, as we've been kind of back and forth, broken wings side by side, oversteering into him, because that's my tyre wear kicking in. Even though I do feel racier right now with 6 laps to go, the tyre wear is there on the rear, and especially the rear left. So even though I'm feeling better, I'm also having more issues with the rear end kind of being a bit more lively, but in a way that's kind of almost what I need in these corners, because I don't want understeer. I need a car that's kind of dancing around these corners, because I have such little downforce. I need something to rotate the car, even if that's the tyre wear basically. But we're now trying to catch up to Giovinazzi, who's looking to attack Gasly in the AlphaTauri. So the 2 Alphas battling away, Alpha with a PH and Alpha with an FA, and we close up now to the Italian versus the Frenchman there. They're just about neck and neck now. They're kind of tucking Giovinazzi under the rear wing of Pierre, but here we go, ERS use, and well, very low on fuel. We're negative. We need to try and save that later, but we go around the outside of both of them there. One tasty, very smooth move, 2 places gained, up into P11 now of the Grand Prix, and now desperately thinking about trying to chase after Ricciardo for maybe one last position, but he's in a Red Bull and we've got only 5 laps left, so it may be tricky to even get a point in this race. Meanwhile, Hamilton leads the way then in his Mercedes. 2nd place Leclerc, 3rd Bottas, and 4th place Vettel. So checkerboard of Mercedes and Ferrari, and Sainz is a little bit down the order, because the AlphaTauri of Sergio Perez is in P5 as it is behind here, but Vettel going slow. Yellow flags. Vettel's got an issue here at the Ferrari home GP, right in front of the Tifosi fans here in the grandstand on the well, there you can see on your screen on either side here of the circuit, and Vettel parks it up then on the exit at turn 1. He is out of this Grand Prix. There is Sainz behind a McLaren of Ocon, so the McLaren looking very punchy, and Sainz really floundering a little bit, because I think that's only P7 or 6 right now. So to say that, he started all the way up there in P5, he's not had the best race, or race pace rather, and so now we're up into P10, we get that free position, and that is unfortunately going to be where our race ends, because we're here on the last lap of the Grand Prix, lap 27, and we've gained that free position. But Ricciardo waltzed away from us and actually caught up to Russell and overtook him in the Alfa Romeo, so Ricciardo's now up into P8. But what will continue on is a fight here brewing. This is on the last lap. Hamilton leads the way, but look at this, Leclerc gaining all the speed in the world, down the inside, the man in the Ferrari car goes into Ascari, and he's just made an overtake for the race lead on the last lap. He did it last race against us into the last corner. Leclerc got 1st place at the last minute at Spa, and he's done it again in the last sector at the Italian Grand Prix. Really his last lap Leclerc would seem in our career mode series here, because Leclerc rounds the bend to come home in 1st place at the Italian Grand Prix for the Tifosi fans. What a story, what a win. Back-to-back wins for Leclerc, and both times he's got it at the death of the Grand Prix. Amazing stuff, to be fair to him. Fair play for us across the line. P10, 1 championship point. That was the toughest race this season, hands down. With the damage, the fighting back. I mean, we got driver of the day, but that was a real tough race to swallow, to be fair.
That's a fantastic performance from Ferrari. It hardly looked in doubt. Anthony, tell me, what was it that helped them achieve this success?
Well, this was a real team victory. They put together a solid strategy today that appeared well suited to the conditions out on track. The driver did everything that was expected of them in the moment to really execute the team's plan to perfection, a shining example of how F1 really is a team sport.
Here come our winners now. A thrilling race and a tremendous effort by Ferrari. Their history is well known, so it's no surprise to fans the world over to see them come out on top once again.
There you have it, Leclerc, first place there, thoroughly deserved. Well, I mean, I really didn't think that was going to happen because Hamilton looked like he had it covered, but I guess he just hit so much tyre wear maybe at the end of that race that in the corners Leclerc caught up and then got the DRS, obviously, ERS used down that straight into Ascari and got the job done. So 2 wins in the trot for Leclerc and both done, like I said, on the last lap. So you can't say anything but praise that, to be fair. And Ferrari with the upgrades, maybe they're now going to be a spanner in the works. It seemed like, it's been us at Archer Racing covering off Mercedes, with that cushion we've got in the drivers and the constructors. Could this be the start of Ferrari being the spanner in the works? Because I thought it would have been Red Bull, because Verstappen and Ricciardo at one point were upgrading their car and looking quite fast. But now Ferrari out of nowhere with 2 wins in a row, maybe they're the ones that are going to be a little bit, interesting in terms of this kind of third team kind of in the mix that aren't really in the championship fight, but still kind of being bothersome to Mercedes and ourselves. I don't know. But right now, we've still got a decent cushion, 20 points to Mercedes and the Drivers' Championship. We're still okay versus Hamilton. Our lead is cut quite a bit, obviously, because Hamilton gets 18 points, but it's still a decent cushion. I'm not worried yet, but we obviously can't have another race like this next time out. It's Singapore. Hopefully we'll bounce back there. Obviously no engine penalties to be taken there, so hopefully we won't be in that situation. This race, in a way, almost was an example of, maybe the F1 game, which obviously allows for some overtaking, but you can still, get in a pickle. That's what happens when you're not where you're meant to be. That's what happens when you're in the traffic. You try and move, you break a bit of your front wing, you get stuck in with some battles you don't want to be with, and you kind of get penned in a little bit. So that was kind of the classic sort of thing you see a lot of the time in real life F1 in a way. So that was an interesting Italian Grand Prix. As I said, probably the toughest race we've had so far this season, but I thought we fought back pretty well, but obviously it was my mistake with Grosjean in the end of it. But if you did enjoy the episode, be sure to hit that like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you are new around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. I've been aarava. Hope you guys enjoy today. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.